Welcome to the first normal island of the year. It's so good to be back. We were away for about 2 weeks, but it just feels so much longer. Now, joining me tonight is our brilliant turn left contributor, Lewis Aaron. Lewis, how do you feel about being the first guest of Normal Island 2025?
What can I say? It's already been like an insane news day. Like, I don't even know what this year's got ahead of us. There's just like so much has happened just in literally the shape of one day. The first 24 hours have been insane. So obviously the show's going to be interesting, but the rest of the year, I can't even imagine what's going to be happening.
Now, for some of you, it would have been a while since you've seen us, but if you tuned into last night's debrief, then it was just us two again, me and Lewis. So good to see you again. Now, the stories we are covering tonight: Labour ditches social care reform. Keir Starmer finally responds to Elon Musk. Musk calls for reform to ditch Nigel Farage. And FTSE 100 company bosses have already earned in 6 days that workers will for the entirety of 2025. Now, remember to please like and share this show. It's obviously good for the algorithm. Please keep the comments flowing as we'll be reading them about halfway through the show. Now, on to the first story. Wes Streeting has decided to ditch their social care reforms for 3 years. Now, they've had a pretty turbulent 6 months in government, and the Health Secretary seems to think it's a good idea to put these reforms off until 2028. Instead, Labour will be launching a 3-year-long commission. Wes Streeting has defended the timescale for reforming adult social care in England, with proposals on its long-term funding unlikely to be delivered before 2028. The Health and Social Care Secretary is promising to finally grasp the nettle on social care reform, but said on Friday the process would take time. The independent commission, chaired by Baroness Louise Casey, will begin work in April, but it's not due to publish its final report until 2028. It will be split into 2 phases, the first of which will report by mid-2026 and identify critical issues and recommend medium-term improvements. But phase 2, which will look at how to organise care services and fund them for the future, will not report until 2028, a year before when the next election must be held. And this sums the Labour Party up. They don't want to take action on anything. They just want to look like they're doing work, but not actually doing anything. This is exactly the same with the two-child benefit cap. Instead of scrapping it, they created a child poverty action force, which will look into child poverty, and then they're going to come back with solutions, which will probably be scrapping the two-child benefit cap. Here, Labour want to spend most of their first term in Parliament relying on quangos and commissions. We don't need reviews. We don't need inquiries. The research is already there from activists and economists. Lewis, this government is a whole lot of nothing. What do you make of Streeting pushing back much needed reforms to social care?
I thought they were ready for government, Curtis. What's going on? They said they were
I did
completely
too.
ready. What was that?
I did too. I thought they were ready for government, ready to make changes.
I just don't. I understand how circumstances can change, so you might need to come in with one plan and change it. And I think we've given Labour actually plenty of leniency when it comes to certain topics and about how here's what they promised and here's what they want to deliver, and we accept that some things will have to change because circumstances change. If they didn't actually have a plan for this, then they weren't ready and they lied again. It infuriates me. How can you have so many years to build up towards becoming the next government and not actually have something in place? Now, I understand as the shadow cabinet, they have less powers, but they have pretty much all the same access as the government does. They have all the same documents, all the same briefings, all the same access pretty much as the shadow cabinet. So they knew all the details that they needed to make the changes that they should be making already. Again, I will give some leniency to the idea of some plans that they may have wanted to do, not wanting to do those due to lack of funding, circumstances, whatever. They don't have a plan. Here's a new commission, or it's not a commission, is it? What's the correct word? It's a
Well, they called it an independent commission.
uh,
That's the framing they're using, but
it's not a
it
review. I thought they changed it to review, or is it? It doesn't.
who
It
knows
doesn't
though?
matter
Who
anyway.
knows?
It's highly frustrating as well, not just because that it's proven that they didn't actually have a plan for this at all. That on top of that, the way we do reviews or commissions or whatever you want to call them in this country uh, take too long. It makes simply no sense. I will go back
Mm.
and just dredge up COVID just for a second, because our COVID inquiry is still not going to be finished for years, whereas most of mainland Europe have already done theirs. They did it before COVID was even over, even though it's not really over. There's some, I think Sweden had theirs done within 3 months. Why is it that anytime we want to do something, it takes this long? It's frustrating, and I just I can't grasp how much they've just misled us.
Mm. I mean, the entire sort of point of being a party ready for government or a government in waiting is to sort of do the things you're expecting to do when in government. And you're right, they've got power, and that's the entirety of the Labour Party. It's like, well, all we wanted was power, and now they've got power. They're sort of scratching their heads, going, "Oh shit, we actually have to do things now." Part of that is probably because they've been in opposition for so long, and I personally think that no one expected. I would say maybe 2 years ago, no one expected for Keir Starmer to be PM, including himself and including Morgan McSweeney. I mean, the point with Keir Starmer was to just wipe out the left.
Mhm.
So they don't have a particularly a policy platform, shall I say. Now, look, the government said its ultimate aim is a national care service, and this was really talked about mostly under the Corbyn leadership, but it's actually mentioned in the 2024 manifesto. The government had promised a national care service in its manifesto, although provided little detail. Streeting told the Today programme that the service is about national standards, consistent access to high quality care for older and disabled people everywhere in the country. The independent commission will work with users of care services, their families, staff, politicians, and the public to recommend how best to build a care service to meet current and future needs. So, are we surprised at the lack of detail in their NCS plans? No. But in the 2019 manifesto, the NCS plans was to give free social care for all adults and free personal care for the elderly.
Mm.
Lewis, we obviously discussed Labour pushing back their social care reforms simply because they don't have a plan. But Labour literally had one in their last manifesto. So if the Commission comes back with something close to what Jeremy Corbyn offered, I think it seems unlikely that they will implement this because, well, it would be far too radical for Keir Starmer and the rest of the top team.
Yeah, sorry, there was a slight delay on my end then. Yeah, it's the problem is as well. It's not even just the case that they had a plan in that manifesto. Is that these commissions, inquiries, reviews have all been happening for years. I was literally reading earlier today the one that Tony Blair commissioned, and actually didn't end up accepting any of the recommendations at the end of it. I just don't understand how we can go through so many governments, so many different leadership. So many different prime ministers, so much different cabinets, and just still not get this sorted. I understand it's very costly, and the cost of the increase is going up year upon year. But as we love to do on this channel and talk about these things, what do you think is one of the causes of all of this? Why do you think it costs so much, Curtis? Can you take a guess? It's because how much private hands are in this sector. Just reading a report that was released a few months ago by a team at Oxford, I was reading that 96% of residential care is now outsourced to private companies. 96. Most of them, the vast majority, are for profit. There are some organizations out there, of course, who who provide service without making a profit, but the vast majority are profit makers. I was also then reading that one of the leading companies for social care for young people, just last year, in 1 year, just for the care of children in this country, they made £300 million profit. When we're talking about £350 million, flying off somewhere else, which is the phrase that they used during the Brexit campaign, where's the anger about that? Where's the anger that £300 million is going into the pockets every year of some executives in private companies who are literally making profit off of the children that we have in our social care system throughout the UK? It's quite disgusting. So it seems to me, Curtis, that the simple solution, is it too simple? I don't know, is to perhaps get rid of these companies who are private and bring the care back into national hands. 'Cause surely, if just one provider of social care for children in this country is making £300 million profit, if just that £300 million profit could be taken away and the cost absorbed by the taxpayer, well, isn't that going to save everyone literally billions of pounds? And that's just one sector. Again, private hands, outsourcing. In any of these plans, have you seen anything about them, bringing in uh, a more nationalized system, or is it we're streeting
Well,
again, just continue going on about how we need to use the private sector?
well, the point is that in their manifesto, there was no detail. It was, we want to build a national care service. And I think what they're doing is they're leaping on the popularity of the national care service idea under Jeremy Corbyn, because he had the policies behind it. And they're like, well, we're radical. We're going to do a national care service, but we have zero plan for it. So I couldn't even tell you what the plans are because it's not in the manifesto. If we could guess, of course, it's going to work with private companies. Of course, they're not going to change that. And look, that's an easy decision for us. That's an easy thing to say. We just need to not have private industry making a profit of healthcare and social care. But that's very difficult for the Labour Party because they're funded by these people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to expect any change there. But I just think it's remarkable that they're kicking the can down the road when the very same party at the last election did have a plan, and they've got nothing. But this is the entirety of the Labour Party. It's a vacuum of nothingness.
Yeah, like obviously they've with some of the stuff that they've come through with that they've actually done, like I don't know, taxing private schools. That's like a on and off switch, isn't it? It's just one thing that you can just click and it's done.
Yeah.
It seems like any policy that they've got really which requires any sort of in-depth analysis or think or policy, there's just nothing. There's no substance behind any of their deeper policies. They've got some stuff which is just on and off, and the rest of it is, I don't know, it's just
I mean,
not there.
I would describe it as sticking plaster politics, which is
Yeah.
exactly what Keir Starmer said he wasn't about. But
Oh,
that's
but again, to a
who they
certain
are.
extent, we agree that they've come into a difficult situation. I think again, I will always say that because it is only fair. But to then have no plans, we would expect if they had a plan, if they had to change them or adjust them, we'd be like, okay, we'd probably still criticize them in the way we would because we're fair when it comes to our criticisms. But there's nothing to criticize. There's no substance. And we're getting this midterm report in 2026, and it'll probably say the exact same thing as it did
Yeah.
in the previous reports and commissions that have been put through and wasted hundreds of millions of pounds on these commissions. That's how much they cost, by the way. Literally hundreds of millions of pounds these commissions cost. It's an absolute joke. And they will just come back with the same hashed out ideas. And the same thing is happening right now. And obviously, I know we're going to get onto that soon, but it's almost like parallel of what's happening with the Elon Musk drama right now. These people are calling for, oh, we need this commission, and Labour are bad for saying they don't want a commission. It's because there's been a commission, and they've spent hundreds of millions of pounds on it. So to do another one would be then wasting money. We have the action plans that we actually need. You've said it as well. They've been in previous manifestos. They've been in previous reviews. Just implement them. They're obviously just buying themselves time. That's as simple as that.
It's a funny strategy because they've only been in power for 6 months. Clearly, they're universally hated. And to push something like this back until 2028, which the article mentions about a year before the election, I mean, how is that going to look for the people? What's their chances of another victory when they could say, right, okay, we had a rocky start. The first 6 months or a year was bad, but they can make excuses. We had to take on so much shit, whatever. But look at what we've done since. We've radically transformed the NHS and social care for the better. But now it's going to be, right, the first 4 years in government, we've actually done sweet FA. We've done a couple of commissions. That's only going to buy into the narrative that they are absolutely useless in government, and it's only going to support the opposition parties. It's only going to bolster them.
Yeah, and the idea as well, like the idea of a shadow cabinet, I think fundamentally is actually a good idea. It gives people who are ready to come into government access to everything that they actually need to be able to perform quickly. They're in power the day that they get elected, and they should have, in theory, have everything ready that they need, with again some slight adjustments depending on situations that arise. That's fair enough.
Mm.
Most of the countries actually don't have this like shadow function. In the US, if you're elected, the president-elect starts getting, briefings and documents. His cabinet doesn't. The people who are going to be running his teams don't. They haven't even been put through Congress yet. So they actually have an excuse of when they come into power and say, here's things, here's a mess. We didn't know this was going on. We're going to have to do this plan. They don't have that excuse here. They were the shadow cabinet. Wes Streeting was the shadow minister and has had plenty of time to come up with at least a more specific plan that even could still be general, but still with more specifics.
Well, I mean, you got to think the election for Jeremy Corbyn was 2 years. The first one, 2015, 2017. They came up with a very thorough manifesto.
Yeah.
But Keir Starmer's had 4 years in opposition. It came up with a very empty, full of platitudes manifesto and doing nothing in government. It's like the policies are with the left wing. Not just saying, but we are going to move on because it's already 30 minutes past 8. So let's go on to our second story. Keir Starmer has finally responded to Elon Musk's multiple attacks on Labour, recently calling for the UK to be liberated from this tyrannical government.
Musk, look, I think most people are more interested in what's going to happen to the NHS, frankly, than what's happening on Twitter. But you asked me a really important question that's been in the news for the last few days. I am going to, with permission, just answer it quite fully because it is a really important set of issues. And let me start with this. Child sexual exploitation is utterly sickening, utterly sickening. And for many, many years, too many victims have been completely let down by perverse ideas about community relations or by the idea that institutions must be protected above all else. And they've not been listened to and they've not been heard. And when I was chief prosecutor for 5 years, I tackled that head on because I could see what was happening. Those that are spreading lies and misinformation as far and as wide as possible, they're not interested in victims. They're interested in themselves. Those who are cheerleading Tommy Robinson, not interested in justice. They're supporting a man who went to prison for nearly collapsing a grooming case, a gang grooming case. These are people who are trying to get some kind of vicarious thrill from street violence that people like Tommy Robinson promote. And so just as I took on the criminal justice system and the institutions when I was chief prosecutor, I'm prepared to call out this for what it is. We've seen this playbook many times, whipping up of intimidation and threats of violence, hoping that the media will amplify it. But when the poison of the far right leads to serious threats to Jess Phillips and others, then in my book, a line has been crossed. I enjoy the cut and thrust of politics, the robust debate that we must have, but that's got to be based on facts and truth, not on lies, not on those who are so desperate for attention that they're prepared to debase themselves and their country.
I mean, I do want to first say that it's ironic that Starmer is talking about people lying when he is one of the most dishonest politicians we've probably ever had. I think that's something worth pointing out. Having said that, there is another person who's an even bigger liar, and that's Elon Musk. Lewis, what do you make of that clip? I mean, did you think Starmer's response was strong enough, or was it more weak sauce from him?
Okay, so in terms of Starmer responses I think it was on the better end. I still wouldn't call it good. It was better for Starmer. I just feel like this was a perfect opportunity to really steal the spotlight the way Farage does and the way other people do, right? We are living in an attention economy where people who can garner attention, whether it's Musk, Farage, or whoever else, attention is currency. And I feel like, again, it was a missed opportunity by Starmer to really deliver something that was good, because you've got the richest man in the world with a platform with tens of millions of active users. You've got Reform supporters, you've got Tommy supporters, all looking at this. it's all eyes on Keir, and I feel like he could have gone further. He could have been more spunky, a bit more charismatic. And again, like I want to advise him, but to help them almost like take on the far right, which is something that we want to do as well, is that you have to perform. Unfortunately, it is a bit of theatre, and you do need to act theatrically. If he would have just brought a bit more spunk and humanity into it, I think it could have actually been a really good speech and a really good response. But it was almost like a missed opportunity. Again, wasn't bad, but was better for Starmer. that's all. I don't know how else I can put it for him.
The thing is, though, he's a technocrat by nature, so he's not gonna. I mean, I would love him to turn around and say, "Who is this jerk, Elon Musk?" I mean, he's South African. He's not even American, yet he's buying their elections. What's it got to do with us? Like, this guy should butt out. He's the richest person in the world. The reason why he wants to influence this election, the reason why he's backing these other parties, is because he wants to get tax cuts for himself and make himself richer. That's like the populist answer. It would be the great answer, but that's not something Keir Starmer's ever going to do, because, as I said, he's a technocrat.
Do you know, actually, what would have been better, though, is for him to turn around and go even further and say, why didn't you take a look at the list of banned people who Elon Musk allowed back onto Twitter when he bought it?
Absolutely. We've got literal neo-Nazis going back on there, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he could even talk about, you don't even need to explain who this person is if you don't know, but if he would have turned around and said, he let Alex Jones back onto Twitter, a guy who got sued for up to $1 billion for denying that one of the biggest mass shootings in American history, where literally dozens of children, and we're not talking about high school here, we're talking about what we'd call primary school, because obviously all school shootings are bad, right? Most of them do happen in high schools. The reason why Sandy Hook was so bad, because it happened to little children, right? And he allowed that person back onto the platform. That is how you say that Elon Musk does not care about kids. You could, obviously he's not going to do this, but what I would have said is that, Donald Trump has just nominated Matt Gaetz to become the Attorney General. He's obviously now withdrawn. Why is he withdrawn? Because he's literally being accused of trafficking 17-year-olds, which, by the way, in America, that is underage, because the age of consent is 18. Oh, on top of that, he's nominated another person, I think, to be the Secretary of Education, who is currently being sued and investigating for allowing child sexual abuse under their company. So if you really want to talk about protecting children, is this the right crowd to be stirring this up? And I completely agree with this right-wing narrative. He is right when he says it's a right-wing thing, because they weaponize other people's victimhood, especially that of children, especially that of women. This is what the Nazis did as well. The Nazis did this to demonize other groups of people, to say that that they were blaming, cases of rape and sexual abuse on Jewish people. And obviously, scapegoating is something that the far right are very good at, to blame problems on other people. And these people obviously don't care about children. It's a tool that they use.
Yeah,
and there's nothing on record to prove that they actually do care or have ever done anything to help children.
I've always said, look, these guys do not give a shit about child grooming gangs, because they selectively choose who the perpetrator is. If they're Pakistani, they're Indian, people of colour, suddenly they really, really care about children. But when you look at the statistics and it's typically white men, suddenly they ignore it. Or if it's Matt Gaetz, or if it's Donald Trump, who has officially been found to have raped someone. Matt Gaetz, who was the only person who voted against child trafficking laws. Human trafficking law, sorry.
Just to correct the record, just so we don't get sued, but I'm sure Matt Gaetz isn't going to see this. He got found by an investigation through Congress, obviously not legally speaking, but we know he's guilty.
Yeah, and these people are the worst people, and yet they ignore it. Now, look, don't get me wrong. If you're black, brown, you're a man or a woman, if you're in a grooming gang, you're a piece of shit, and I want Keir Starmer or whoever's in power to smash you. You should be in jail. But I don't care the colour of the skin. If you're doing it, it's wrong. But the far right only talks about it when it's people of colour, when it's Muslims, because it's their agenda. And you point that out, and they'll just say back to you, you just don't care. And that's it. I mean, because the thing I cringed about in that segment, in that video, was when Starmer said, we need to stick to truth and facts. I've said this so many times now. Truth and facts don't mean shit in 2025 politics. That doesn't matter. Narratives do. And I think Starmer absolutely needs to understand that, and he clearly doesn't. That narratives is politics. That is the politics of today, and it's why being a left populist, I think is the only thing that can fight against right-wing populism.
Yeah,
You can't do
absolutely.
it.
And sorry, did I cut you off then?
No. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, speaking of narratives, though, it's been very frustrating to see from the mainstream media about how they've been talking about this as well. Because when they've been referencing the baseline of the story, which is the grooming gangs, the way they're phrasing it, I saw our previous guest Femi do a video about this as well, talking about how they're not really telling the story correctly. They're actually making it sound like there is a Pakistani grooming gang problem when there isn't. Because if Laura Kay did this on yesterday when she was interviewing Nigel Farage, she literally set the scene as like, oh, there was this investigation which showed that British Pakistani men, there was a problem with like mass grooming and all this and the grooming gangs. It's like, it's not true the way you're phrasing it. What happened is that the specific cases which got investigated by a Times reporter, when he looked into those cases, an overrepresentation in that specific instance was from British Pakistani men in that one scandal. When you actually zoom out and look at the data, and this happened in 2019, Priti Patel, as the Home Secretary, commissioned a report to look into basically who's behind grooming in the UK. And guess what? The numbers don't say it's British Pakistani men, it's overwhelmingly white men. And there's no overrepresentation from that group of people. But under the context of the way the mainstream media have been portraying this story, because they kind of want to get that bit out of the way so they can jump to the juicy stuff, right? They want to talk about Musk and they want to talk about Farage. So when they're doing the preamble, they're not telling the story correctly. And they're actually pushing the far right narrative.
Yeah, they're doing the work for them because they say, okay, you're right about this, but let's talk about how Keir Starmer's going to defend himself against Elon Musk. Whereas a proper media, that's what we're doing. We're actually looking at this source, the story itself, and we're deconstructing that, saying it's a load of bollocks. But Laura Kay, who's on God knows the amount of money, one of my most famous journalists, who like to say that, is just gleefully pushing this narrative. I think it's quite annoying, actually, because Elon is that bad. He's got me defending Starmer. Look, Keir Starmer wasn't the person I wanted as Prime Minister, but we had an election 6 months ago, and Musk is doing his best to interfere in our electoral system. Look, our country voted for Labour. Musk is a foreign billionaire, the richest man in the world, I may add. This has piss all to do with him. So, yeah, Elon Musk just needs to fuck off, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He just needs to absolutely just fuck off, fly in one of his rockets to Mars, which, by the way, he said he'd be at Mars this year. He lied. And just...
Oh, actually, I think it was 2023 it's supposed to, because I think in 2013 he said, in 10 years' time, we will have people on Mars. So it's actually 2 years... Well, maybe a year, to be generous.
Just prioritizing other things. But yeah, the whole thing is a bit of a joke. So we've got, Musk right now interfering in the UK quite deeply. We've got him messing around in Brazil, a little bit in Italy, and obviously, more importantly as well, Germany. Germany's got the next election in February, and he's backing the AfD. And we've had, the editor of one of the most prominent newspapers resigning because they allowed Elon Musk to do an op-ed supporting the AfD. We brought this up yesterday, right, about the idea that the right for years have created the left-wing boogeyman billionaire who's behind the shadows, George Soros and whoever else. Obviously, it ties into a larger anti-Semitic Jewish conspiracy theory, but obviously they love to focus on someone like Soros, who's, in relative terms to many of Trump's donors, actually quite poor. George Soros isn't that rich compared to the other billionaires who back him. They say he pulls the strings, he donates to all these things. Musk is doing that out in the open. He is the Soros, he is the boogeyman that they've created. Again, I don't want to keep rehashing that issue, but I think it's still very important just to highlight the constant hypocrisy of the people who support these people and believe in these conspiracy theories. But Musk seems to be spiraling very quickly. The amount of tweets that he's putting out, it seems very unhinged.
I mean, it's the
I can't imagine it's going to last long with Trump.
Sorry, it's what was that? It's the Graham Linehan effect, because, look, I feel like a lot of these guys go in this crazy pipeline, and it starts with transphobia. Because back in 2018, Tesla had a 100 out of 100 score on the LGBTQ, like how pro-queer they were. And then Musk is like, this is amazing, like, fuck you to the haters, like, Tesla once again is standing up for trans people, and if you don't like it, don't buy cars. That's in 2018. And look, it's famously, he has a trans daughter who's estranged, clearly treated her like shit. And by the way, like, when he was pretending to be a liberal, like, he he wasn't actually liberal. He was probably quite right wing anyway, the way he treated his family. But like forward facing, he was pretending to be a liberal. In just a few short years, though, he's just gone on some weird divorced energy kind of thing. Graham Linehan, same sort of thing. J.K. Rowling again. Like it's. I'm not saying it all starts in transphobia, by the way, but it seems to be a sort of pattern. And I mean, I would say that Musk is just clearly mentally unwell, and it just shows that no one should have this amount of power.
On top of that, he's literally it's been
Deranged
reported
human
multiple
being.
times that he's like addicted to ketamine.
Yeah,
And
he's doing it. He's tweeting when he's on cat. Have you seen those videos when he's with Trump and he's on his phone and you just know he's name searching himself or getting angry on Twitter? He's next to the president elect and he's on Twitter.
Did you hear about this? Did you hear about the story where he was cosplaying a second account as his child? Did you hear about it?
Yes, I did.
It's just absolutely strange. For anybody watching who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it was found out that Elon Musk actually had, this is verified, by the way, he verified it himself. Someone found a second account, which was owned by Elon Musk, which was cosplaying as his, I think, 3-year-old child. And he was posting stuff like, I want to go to Japan, and just really weird stuff.
Pretending shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just really strange. And he admitted that it was him once he got asked. It's just such a bizarre man. But again, you know, because we live in this capitalist society, he's rich, he's successful, so people will just idolize him regardless of any of his behavior, because people worship money and capitalism over anything. So regardless of what behaviors he, you know, gives off, whether it's calling random people on the internet pedophiles. Actually, that reminds me, we had a British diver when I was in Thailand when this happened. I was in Thailand when this went down, when those kids were stuck in that cave in Thailand in 2017, I think it was, 2018. You know, there was kids stuck in a cave. A British diver went out to lead a team to rescue them. Elon Musk offered a mini submarine or something to go and help them. And the guy was like, no, thank you, not very helpful. We've got this. And he literally called him a pedophile. It's like, talk about, you know, wanting to actually protect children.
I was talking about that story with my brother just before Christmas, because I read the headlines. I knew it was bad, but he watched a film. There was like a mockumentary film about it a few years later. And I didn't realize how insane that story was. Like the teacher and the kids were trapped in a cave that was filled with water for days and days and days. And they had to take someone out one by one. And they were expecting all of them to die, and they all survived. And yeah, Elon Musk was like, oh, because he wanted to be the main character, I can help with my stupid little underwater thing. And the experts are like, no, this isn't going to work. And he insisted, like, look, just fuck off. Like, you're actually embarrassing yourself. And then he had the temerity to call one of our heroes, a diver who got some of these kids out, a paedophile, because he just didn't like him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deranged human being.
Just absolutely deranged, completely, utterly.
Anyway, let's move on. But before we go into our next story, I just want to say thank you to all those who are watching. Remember, if you haven't liked the stream, then please do. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that too. It's also very helpful if you come back after the live and drop a comment. That's really good for the algorithm. Now, if you guys want to see Turn Left continue to grow, then make sure you share this video online or offline. Tell your friends and family about us. And again, if you're not subscribed, make sure you do. Now, there are currently just literally a handful of us working voluntarily, but we want to be in a position where we can do this full-time, that this is our paid work. That means we can upgrade our equipment, create far more ambitious content, and one day have a studio. So if you want to help, you can help us build a socialist media alternative. You can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/supports. There you can give us a one-off donation or support us monthly on Patreon. The links are there for you. You can also follow us on Blue Sky. Our handle is at turnleftmedia.co.uk. Before we go to the comments, though, I just want to say a big thank you to a lot of people who were in our stream yesterday. We had a 2-hour and 45-minute stream, and I think we had about 60 members, 60 new members. It was insane. I've never seen so many donations and so many gifted subs. It was really incredible. So I want to thank those, some of you who are in tonight. So you've been a great help. But I'll tell you what, when we do our comments, we're going to bring Lewis in as well. Let's see what we have.
Thank you for bringing me in. I wasn't doom scrolling on my phone in the background.
The fact Braveman had to stand up and admit the truth before diving into her propaganda piece is always forgotten by people. Yes. I mean,
Yeah, I think maybe Satnav might be referring to, obviously, her talking about Pakistani grooming gangs in Parliament, using her parliamentary privilege to do so. And then I think that in the same day, or the same 24 hours, her own team from the Home Office had to come out and correct her and say that what she said was false. I think maybe that's what Satnav's talking about.
Bill Silver, Elon Musk is a Nazi, backing every Nazi group in the West who destroyed democracy. Starmer is right on this. Perhaps he'll wake up and realize this is a war. Yeah, so I've publicly said on Twitter that Elon Musk is a literal Nazi, and I think most people would look at that and go, that's a bit too far. That's hyperbole. But he's pushing great replacement theories. He's bolstering Nazi accounts. One Nazi account called Peter Snowden, I believe it's him, has denied the Holocaust. Like, he was banned from Twitter. He's been allowed on. He's backing the AFD. Like, this isn't a party where people say they're Nazis and they're not. Like, their own members of the party are like, yeah, we're Nazis. So, yeah, I mean, he absolutely is a Nazi. And they are a threat to democracy. Nazis and democracies do not go together. They don't go well together. Jacqueline, is Elon trying to incite yet another UK race riot with his comments? Probably. Do you know what? It's like he's like this villain where if you were to write him in a story, they laugh at you for being too on the nose.
I think what kind of scares me, though, is that Elon only got on the train of I'm literally forgetting the name of the riots. Oh my God. I've literally forgotten the name.
Nigel Farage riots.
The Farage riots, that's one name for them.
No, the race riots.
The race riots as well is another name for them. I'm literally forgetting the name of the actual. Oh my God, I feel terrible. Someone in the comments will probably correct me, about 5 people in a second. Anyway, he wasn't on the train at
Southport riots.
Southport. I literally got blanking out, guys. I'm so sorry. The Southport riots, right? So Elon Musk only got on that train after, it was during the prosecutions. That's when Elon Musk really dove into it, because Elon Musk was retweeting people who were saying that this man was, jailed for saying something on Facebook. What that person was in fact saying was literally inciting somebody to go burn down a hotel, which is illegal in the US. Incitement is not protected by the Second Amendment that Elon Musk holds up so well. There isn't a single case that you would read about people getting locked away during those riots and actually reading exactly what they did, like the guy today who got sentenced for 7.5 years for creating a Telegram group to go and target mosques. He got sentenced today for 7.5 years. Also had a knife on him too while he was trying to do this.
I love how it's painted on the internet, and they always do this. It's like years in jail for writing a tweet or just saying something. It's like, well, actually look into it. I mean, you've got not just far right accounts. Yeah. You've got small randomers. You've got journalists, right-wing journalists who are sharing stuff like, this man is in jail for 2 years for sneering at the police. And then you read the story, it's like, oh, he also beat someone up in the park. He also punched a policeman, kicked a dog. Funny how you forget all of that.
Yeah, and this is the thing, he's promoting this citizen journalism thing, which is just a load of bullshit. There's good citizen journalists out there. It's not what Elon Musk is promoting. What tends to happen is, again, he retweets things and boosts accounts with very vague kind of posts. So I saw one just earlier today, posted it a few hours ago, retweeted by one of his little citizen journalists, which was, here's all the British MPs who voted against deporting illegal rapists or something like that. And it was just a list of MPs' names with no bill, no name of the bill, no nuance to what the text was, no link to the parliamentary website, just a list of names. And that's it. That's the journalism that he's promoting. And this constantly happens. And this is what happened. And this is what happened in Southport, right? It was just false information getting put out there and being boosted. And the point that I want to get to is when I brought up Elon Musk when he got involved after Southport, when these prosecutions started going up, is that the next time we have a crisis in the UK, he's going to be doing it during the crisis. And that's fucking terrifying. Because can you imagine how worse Southport would have been if everything exactly the same happened, but Elon Musk was tweeting 20 times an hour during the Southport riots and boosting all these far-right conspiracy theories even further? It is fucking terrifying what is going to happen during our next crisis, because there will be one. Because that's what happens, unfortunately, especially under the circumstances that we're under. I don't even want to think about it.
I think that might be it for our comments. Oh, we've got loads more. Bring them up. Becca Ray. Oh, and Elon let Andrew Tate back on X, Cobra Tate, and he was denying the charges against him and using it to intimidate victims, witnesses. It's insane. Again, these guys are like, oh, grooming gangs, grooming gangs. Like, Andrew Tate has got, like, cases against him for human trafficking and his brother. You just couldn't make it up, could you?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw as well, like the UK government seized some money off them last week as well for tax avoidance, but all the rich
These
people with
people are
that.
dangerous and should be behind bars.
I think he may. Sorry, I'm reading out your. Sorry, I'm not the host. I'm not the host.
Abodi, I think he made the most important point. They are not interested in victims, only themselves. They're interested in themselves, or they're interested just pushing their agenda, which is racism and fascism. It's simply that. And like pointing that out, people just go, oh, well, listen, but I don't know how you can explain it any differently.
Yeah.
It's almost like we'll be proven right in the future after we've gone through all the shit. But I don't want to be proven right.
Yeah.
I'd rather be proven wrong, actually, if you ask me. But
Just quickly on that comment though, Callum is our producer right now. During the Southport riots, just to show you how much people don't give a fuck about kids. After those 3 children were obviously they lost their lives, 2 days after after this initial Southport protest turned into a riot. They went to Downing Street, right? Me and Callum happened to be meeting up, and we were like, "Oh, let's go check it out. Let's go to Downing Street." Do you know what we saw? We saw mostly a bunch of thugs with no signs, no protest signs, no banners. What they did have was massive crates of beer. They were throwing all those bottles at the police. They were literally scattered on the floor, down at the side of Downing Street, on the other side of the street, just beer everywhere, crates of beer. Not just something they've just casually picked up from the local Tesco, like full on crates of Carling, crates of beer. They don't give a shit about kids. They just want to go out and they just want to cause trouble. They don't give a fuck. The next time,
if it's a cause you really believe in, why are you getting pissed up?
What's that?
If it's a cause you really believe in, why are you getting pissed up?
Exactly.
Go to the pub.
Exactly.
I like to sometimes get pissed up, but I wouldn't go to a protest pissed up because they're two very different things. But, well, kind of sort of exposes it as it is. SK the Crusader, very good friend of this show. Hope you're well. Keir Starmer famously said he would change the things that need changing, and that is the change I will bring about. Can't figure out what's going on to us. If you can't understand what you're saying, then we can't help you. Clearly, he wants change. You nearly kind of said it because you were sort of doing an impression of him, not like an actual impression of him, but you're kind of like trying to sound like him in terms of wordplay. And you nearly said that sentence. It just made me laugh because he's like, it's just word salad. It's just filling out the the essay count. He's so bad at this.
Do you know what's funny though is like one analysis that is absolutely accurate when it comes to Trump, Farage, all these people is that it happened with Brexit as well. It's no facts, it's no information, it's just vibes, right? There's no nuance. It's like Keir Starmer's doing that, but not getting the payoff.
He's bad at all of it, isn't he?
Yeah.
Andy Carter, do you think Musk will ask Trump to invade us? Probably. Like you can't. I think some people might try and like say, "Oh, let's just calm things down a little bit," but he's not just the world's richest man. He's the world's richest man who's also divorced and on ketamine. He is deranged, and he has the power with it. So, do I think he'll ask him? Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
and would Trump do it? Yeah, probably.
Andy, I don't know if you saw as well today that Trump, 2 things have happened today. Trump has literally invited on Truth Social Canada to join America as the 51st state, a literal formal invitation. And also his son is in the middle, currently flying to Greenland, a territory that he's repeatedly said that he wants. So I don't even know where to go with that, but that's what's happening right now in terms of American colonialism and supremacy and imperialism. So the next 4 years are going to be fun, aren't they, Curtis?
Yes, they are. Flow Snake, did you get my email? It was headed audio diagnostics. I said it could help with Curtis's mic issues. I did. I read the email literally just before we came on air, so I will respond to it.
Thank you, Flo.
Afterwards. Thank you. Bill Silver, another hot zone in Canada. Trudeau resigning could lead to a far-right Trump loyalist making Canada the 51st. There you go, the 51st state Trump wants it to be without a fight. And again, it's kind of like we despise Trudeau, we despise Keir Starmer, but at this certain point in time, it's like, damn it, we kind of need to be on their side against these forces. And Trudeau going, you're probably right, Bill. It's probably sort of opened the doors to the far right, even though, like, long term, centrism opens the door for the far right, obviously, but like it's sort of just kicked it open.
I just don't know how further right nationalists in power can get into power by saying we're going to give up our nationalism. We'll see what happens.
Not by democracy. Graham Sudworth, I never want to hear the word spunk used in the same sentence as Keir Starmer again. Please, guys. Not plural. I didn't say it. Lewis did. Clearly, you like Starmer with a lot of spunk then, don't you?
Yeah, Graham, please let me know what word you'd like me to use as a synonym for it. Bit of jive, bit of vigor. Let me know.
Becca says, new merch drop, F off Elon Musk. I really like that. Maybe we should do a merch line. Like, we've got some Turn Left t-shirts for the team, and we've been thinking about maybe doing like a merch. That would be quite cool. Like,
we could kind of like trigger the right and do like a Elon Musk go back to where you came from type thing.
Oh, that is quite funny. I think we've got some memberships in store as well, actually. It'd be embarrassing if I'm wrong, but I'm sure I've seen some. Can we pull those up at this all?
I can. Well, right back at the top. One moment, I saw some as well. Oops, sorry. I
Katie Marshall has just become a member. I believe that's 12 months now. So thank you for sticking with us for a whole year.
Thanks, Katie.
I definitely seen gifted memberships in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Super
I saw
chat.
them too. But I
This
think
is such a professional operation.
I know. I think I'm stepping on our producer's toes.
Satnav gifted 10 Turn Left memberships. Thank you so much. Really incredible. Ezra, Purple Cat, you've got a membership there. Enid, Trap Jakers, Matthew Hornsby. Oh, and Andy Carter's also gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. This is turning into yesterday's stream again. It's almost scary because we're not used to these amount of people signing up. But again, thank you so much. And this is,
Don't give me
course, going to help us.
So shy. We're like the people who don't know how to receive like positive feedback. We're just like, stop it,
Stop it, guys. But carry on. But stop it. Yeah. Right. Let's part the comments there. But thank you for your comments. Thank you for your generosity. But it's back to the political stories. Moving on, but unfortunately, sticking with Elon Musk. Elon Musk has called for reform to get rid of Nigel Farage. The Reform Party needs a new leader. Nigel Farage doesn't have what it takes. Farage then responded, and he said this. Well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but this, I'm afraid, I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out on my principles. Oh, really? I still think that's a really pathetic response from Farage, calling him a remarkable individual when Musk is already bored of you. Like, you're the toy. He's played with you for a bit. Now you can go away now, but you're still bitching for him. But I do love it when the right eat each other. Now, the reason why Musk has turned on Farage, despite taking pics with him and supporting reform, is over Tommy Robinson, a.k.a. Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Robinson is in jail for being in contempt of court. He is a criminal who has had multiple run-ins with the law, but Musk's new crusade of supporting far-right parties and figures such as Trump and the AfD, he's called for the release of Tommy Robinson. This then led to Farage and the rest of Reform to distance themselves from Robinson, and Musk doesn't like it. Lewis, the right are fighting. You love to see it. What do you make of all of this?
Okay, so starting from the top, the reason obviously why Farage tweeted that back is he wants his relationship with Trump, right? It gives him power, it gives him influence, it gives him some legitimacy. So that's obviously the reason why he didn't clap back in the way he would if it was perhaps somebody else. But, at the same time, I do love to see the right eat each other. I'm very happy that the Tories were ultimately massively ousted due to Reform stealing votes from them and splitting the votes on the right. We had, just before the show, I'm not going to go into it, but I'm just going to mention it. Andrew Tate is apparently is now his own political party in the UK called Bruv. So bring it on.
So again, what's he called it? Bruv,
wasn't it, I think? Was it
BRUV?
Callum nods. Is it Bruv? Yeah. I'm looking at the producer on the camera. Yeah, it's Bruv.
Is it the Bruv Party or is it just
Bruv? So split more votes. We welcome it. Keep the right divided. However, going into some more serious analysis, people will look at this and be like, yeah, they're fighting each other, and it's good. They're going to tear each other apart. But ultimately, what this could do is actually help Farage because, yeah, he might not get them. Well, he's not going to get the money now. Okay, but there's other sources of money. The most valuable thing that Farage has is the attention that people give him and the attention that he manages to garner, and that's more valuable than £1 million donation that you can get from whoever. Obviously, £100 million can go quite far, but it doesn't have the same effects in UK politics. You can't, see 5 political ads in between, watching the latest episode of House of Dragon on HBO. That's incorrect. You pay for HBO, but you guys know what I mean. But this could legitimize him. If he can turn around and say, "I've taken, I'm not putting up with Musk. I'm not putting up with Tommy." This could actually help legitimize him further because he's actually distancing himself from the even more fringe of our society. The two most prominent rightist wing figures in our country is Farage and Tommy Robinson. I obviously would put visually Tommy Robinson further on the right spectrum, but I believe that they believe in the same things. It's just that they put on a different performance. They give slightly different narratives, but ultimately they are the same person. They believe in the same things, but obviously they have different goals. So it could actually help legitimize him, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, look, Farage rejecting Robinson, in the eyes of Reform members, I don't think that's going to go down well. This is purely strategy, isn't it, and optics, because their politics isn't far removed from each other. I want you to go into that a bit more. Like people will think, oh, well, I guess Farage is more moderate than Tommy Robinson and that, but I don't think that's the case. I think he's playing the optics game.
Yeah, absolutely. It is obviously all optics in many ways, but again, the Reform Party is as strong as they are right now compared to obviously where they were and where they're going. Because the polling is favouring them in many ways, but polling is polling. It's not an election. We're not coming up to one. They are also very weak at the same time. Reform is nothing without Farage. Farage is reform. Reform is Farage. It's as simple as that. Obviously, some of these people do have higher profiles. You've got Lee Anderson, Richard Tice. These people have got higher profiles. Rupert Lowe is building up quite a profile too. But without Farage, they are nothing. When people went to go and vote for reform in every single constituency around this country in July, they voted for Nigel pretty much, with maybe some exception for Lee Anderson.
Clearly, Farage is the most famous, right?
Yes.
He's got the most name recognition, but I don't know. I mean, Reform has that name recognition now as well. Like you hear vote Reform, but not vote Farage. In fact, I hear vote Reform more than Farage. I was also going to ask about Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe is clearly the more. I think all their politics are the same, but he's a bit more radical in terms of his vibe.
He is, yeah. You also saw the follow-up tweet.
Yeah, I think people are trying to say maybe they should replace Farage with Rupert Lowe. What do you think happens then? Again, he does have less name recognition, but I think the Reform brand is clearly very, very popular.
Well, so let's look at the Reform Party as a fascist dictatorship, because that's basically what it is, right? In terms of
there's no membership.
Exactly,
it's a limited company, and there's no membership rights.
So what happens with fascist dictatorships? Obviously, they maintain power, and they don't really give too many people too much power, because then that could replace the leader. So you've got Richard Tice, who was obviously the former leader of the party, while Nigel Farage was raking it in, being on TV saying he was going to America. And you've got Rupert Lowe, who he's stuck by Farage. But imagine getting that tweet and thinking, God, the richest and most prominent, powerful man in the world right now thinks I could be a good leader. Obviously, his response was expected, but that is going to sow some seeds. So what's going to happen further down the line when they start to maybe disagree on things, when they start to split, when you've got these 3 larger than life characters in the party? Because Lee Anderson, I don't even want to talk about him, but when we're talking about Rupert Lowe specifically, I think those seeds are going to be sowed now, that he might have a bit of an ego boost because he's been in this game for such a short time and he's getting a lot of attention. Maybe that could be a seed that's going to cause some damage a little bit further down the line, but all we can do is wait and see. And again, the effect of all of this, while their supporters, reform supporters, they love Tommy. A lot of them do. I don't know how many. I'd guess it's way more than half. They love Tommy Robinson. I speak to a lot of these people regularly in a lot of like different online spaces, because I spend a lot of time actually speaking to these people so I can understand them. And they absolutely love Tommy. So I'm going to be interested to see what the backlash is, either from Rupert Lowe, Lee Anderson, any of these types of people, and also the membership, because they've been boasting so much about their, was it 170,000?
Yeah, but then
I think?
I also saw online that you can just buy people memberships, and someone was bragging about it, and then they had to.
Speaking of buying memberships, now no,
yeah,
I'm
don't
joking.
buy memberships for reform.
That was a
But yeah,
joke.
so it's a bit of a sham as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
But again, like, I know they've offered transparency on their numbers. They've given journalists the access to legitimize those numbers. But I'd be interesting to see if it slows down, if they lose some people, perhaps, or if they're gonna put out a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, which is like, we can't say we like Tommy, we can't say we're going to work with him, but we agree actually on a lot of things. Richard Tice was doing this as well when he was interviewed by Lewis Goodall. I think it was like either on Saturday or Sunday on LBC, when it came to like Jess Phillips. Like, he refused to absolutely refused to make the point that Jess Phillips wasn't a, what was the term, what's the rape, genocide, an enabler or something, whatever that stupid term was. The whole thing's just an absolute mess, and only time will tell to see what happens.
Precisely. Let's leave reform now, hopefully forever, and move on to our final story. Chief executives of FTSE 100 companies made more money between the 1st of January and midday today than the average worker will earn in the entirety of 2025, according to Group High Pay Centre. Median pay for FTSE 100 chief executives is 4.22 million, 113 times the median full-time workers' pay of £37,430. That means UK bosses will exceed their workers' annual pay within 29 hours, or about 11:30 a.m. on Monday, i.e. this morning, if they started work straight after the New Year holiday. Bosses will hit the milestone marginally quicker this year than last, when it was reached at 1 p.m. on the third working day of the year. Now, this right here is the problem. Not immigrants, not refugees, not trans people, not wokeness, but this. The scale of income and wealth inequality is disgusting, and it's getting worse. Lewis, it's time to tax the rich, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. Just to tell a very short story, I used to work for a very prominent luxury British fashion company. You guys can guess who it is. I'm not going to confirm or deny. And I remember I worked in a department. I worked in customer service. And when the first year that we started that job, we took in £12 million. By the end of the third year, we tripled profits. My team, the team that I worked for, there was 50 of us in the UK and a few others in different parts of the world. We tripled profits. My salary went up in the space of 3 years by £500. And in the meantime, my CEO's salary doubled. And this is a big part of the problem. It's a FTSE 100 company, so it's perfectly relevant to this story. And this is exactly the problem. But the issue with obviously taxing the rich as well is that there's all these systems in place when it comes to assets and capital gains, and how people are, how they're, I can't say that word, remuneration. What is it?
What are you trying to say?
Remuneration, is that it? Is that the correct word? Remuneration? I don't know.
Should have picked a different word.
Should have picked a different word. That the package that they get.
You could have just stuck with package. You've made that really difficult for yourself.
It's really difficult. We have to go after capital gains. We have to go after CEOs being paid in assets being paid in shares, and all
Mm-hmm.
of these types of things. And obviously, all of us in here who've probably got a retirement plan, we've got shares invested through our retirement pension. I'm not talking about those capital gains. I'm not talking about the capital gains that, like some person in this chat might have in their savings that's like 10 grand attached to anything like that. I'm talking about the fact that there are executives in this country, and obviously around the world, but in this country specifically, who, like my old CEO, who was paid £3 million in cash, and I think it was either £3 or £6 million in shares, and that amount of remuneration.
Remuneration.
It doesn't get taxed in the same way
Yeah.
because they might not cash it out for years, and then there's loopholes about how long you don't cash it out for. And eventually what happens is all these people end up paying not just less of a percentage tax rate than the average person, but much less, and sometimes into the single digits. Famously as well, going back to the previous person, but I'll use this as an example, I think you can do this in this country too, but not that many people do it, but it's still a function where if you've got shares like Elon Musk has, where he loans them to a bank as like collateral, and they give him a loan, and then he uses that cash, and then they take the assets eventually off of him, and then it's not taxed in the same way. So I think effectively he had like a 3% tax rate on his income essentially. There's all these ridiculous loopholes that these people get to exploit. I genuinely think if a CEO gets paid £3 million in shares, that should be just effectively the same tax rate at the time. Just take it. That should just go. It shouldn't be allowed to be held. It's frustrating.
I think the question here is when we talk about taxation.
Apologies, I'm going off.
To me, the more important thing than income tax is wealth tax, because that's where it's all stashed, isn't it? It's stashed in assets, it's stashed offshore. And I think when you just go for income, it's easy to go through these loopholes, but I also don't think it's radical enough. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't increase income tax. I think we should at least restore the 50p in a pound tax. But I mean, look, when we look back in like the 60s and 70s, my God, taxation was between 90 and 70%. That was income, right? All right, I think we should increase income tax, but it's the wealth tax we need, and it's something that Labour has pretty much written off. I mean, they did increase capital gains tax in the budget. I welcome that, but that is 113 times. So the average of these FTSE 100 companies, some of these chief execs, the average they're making is £22 per minute, £1,200 per hour. The idea that, we're just going to do a bit of capital gains taxation is insane. You're not going to the problem, and I think a lot of people think that inequality is fine. Let rich people be rich. I mean, as long as those at the bottom are richer, that's fine. But you need to understand the increase of inequality means that these people have far more power. That's where the issue comes from, right? I mean, we were just talking about Elon Musk. He's the world's richest man, but because he's so rich, he could buy elections. It's the power that people have over people, which is a huge problem.
Yeah.
So I'll cut you off. Go on.
No, I just came with I was just thinking about another company that I worked for, but this is a better story. I used to work for John Lewis. Obviously, everybody who's from the UK who's watching will know John Lewis. So they used to have this rule in place. I'm not saying it's the perfect solution because obviously I think it could definitely go further. But they had a rule in place where the lowest paid employee in the company was like the frame of how much the CEO could get paid. So there was like a calculation, like an algorithm thing that they had that the CEO could only get paid so much more than the lowest paid person. And if you actually look at how much like former Waitrose and John Lewis CEOs earn compared to other companies, it's vastly different compared to some of the bigger FTSE 100 companies. And again, the CEO still got paid lots and lots of money, but it was a change. It was a difference. It's a progress that we should be aiming towards. It's a gradualism, and I wish more companies would be going in that direction.
I mean, I think John Lewis is actually one of the half decent businesses out there, because I know they've got that. They've also got a bit of internal democracy. I know when it comes to working on Boxing Day. I mean, I don't know if it's changed, but when I was working in the retail sector, workers actually had a choice. They got to have a say and vote on it whether they want to do it. And I think if you did do it, you got a really good bonus for it. Internal business democracy is a very good thing. The only thing it's not good for is the CEOs, because they can exploit you. Now, there's a paragraph in this same article, right? And it will make you want to explode. Now, some observers have argued that chief executives earn their huge rewards and that companies need to pay that much to secure the best people. In 2023, the head of the London Stock Exchange argued that British companies should pay bosses more to match American rivals. So this is in reference to Julia Hoggett, who was the chief executive of the London Stock Exchange. She called for higher pay packets for CEOs last year. Lewis, not only has inequality increased, but a rich banker says it needs to get worse. What do you think about that?
Maybe productivity within a company, therefore, making everyone more money would actually help. Would be helped by giving the people who need the money the most money, right? We've had stagnating wages in this country for years now, ever since the financial crash. Wages have hugely stagnated. And you know what? There is a lot of people out there who I know who are just like, why am I going to work harder if profits aren't going towards me? Why do I see the
precisely.
company growing, but my salary isn't? It's very commonplace now, and I'm sure people in the chat and yourself, Curtis, will know a lot of people like this. Everyone has to move jobs now just to get more pay, because traditionally companies, when they were slightly better at treating their workers, which obviously is arguable, but some companies, you would actually get decent pay rises, you would get decent bonuses, and you would stay at companies for 10, 20, 30, 40 years until your retirement. Now it's 2 or 3 years. Are you not going to pay me more? But you've just released record profits. I'm going to go. And it's because the executives are all prioritizing themselves.
Yes.
So the idea of, we need to give them even more money to attract better talent is a joke. They get paid more than enough. I remember the supermarket CEOs that most of their salaries have doubled just in the last few years, and it just keeps on going on this trend. And then they're saying, we work on really tight profit margins, but then they double their salaries.
But
They give
that is
themselves more
true.
shares.
That is true, though. The sort of norm back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, was, look, to be successful, to have a good, decent job, it is to stick at it, create a career in the business, grow with the company, you'll be looked after. That was true, but that is not it today. In fact, the way of improving your salary is literally by moving to different jobs. But the thing is, though, capitalists and free market capitalists will rejoice at that, because they'll say, this is amazing, this is the market at play, this is working. Now, yes, leaving your current job to make to increase your salary is more likely than staying with a company, but still it's largely a race to the bottom. That's not a good thing. That's happening because there's less workers' protections, there's far more inequality within businesses, and there's too much power at the top. So it's not good for people. In fact, there was actually really, really funny. I was reading the other day a poll for Gen Z people, and most of people in Gen Z want essentially what Gen X and Boomers have, which is to stick at a job and stay in the same job for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, like, a lot of people in the old, like the Boomers and the Gen Xers will say that young people want it all and this and that. And it's like millennials and Gen Z and, want kind of the same things you had, and that's it. It's not really asking for much.
Another thing that I just wanted to add to this as well, when it comes to executives obviously prioritizing themselves, I spoke to you about this like specific point earlier today, and I'm glad I have a chance to bring it up, which is, if people are in charge of their own workplaces, where would they redirect the money? Of course, they would recognize people in the company who might work hard and be like, you know what, I actually think this leader of this team has done a fucking amazing job, and maybe we could vote to redirect a bonus toward them. I don't know, but ultimately, if workers were in charge of their own workplaces, they would be redirecting more of the funds to themselves.
There's a word for that, isn't there, Lewis?
What was it? What's the word?
I don't know, but it begins with an S, I think.
Silliness.
So that sounds a bit like socialism, though.
Swokeness. It sounds a little like socialism, doesn't it? Yeah, it's funny.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I've long argued is socialism is being about freedom and democracy, and the largest part of that is economic democracy. And as we were saying just before the show, how do you deal with capital flight? How do you deal with jobs being shipped overseas? And there's very little what governments can really do. I mean, they can do some things. I mean, they can try and shoot down trade deals, right? I know Bernie Sanders has been hot on that. But, it's one of those inevitability of the sort of liberal zeitgeist of free trade. And you can put tariffs on. Economists would say it probably doesn't work. I'm not talking about the same sort of tariffs Trump's talking about, by the way. You can do economic nationalism. Again, there's a debate of whether that works. But the one thing that definitely does work is a socialist economy, is to socialize businesses. And I don't mean the government owns it. I mean, the workers collectively own it, because as you just pointed out, no worker is going to vote to lose their own job. A CEO is going to be, they'll have a board meeting and say, right, we're going to get rid of all our jobs in America. They pay too high. The labor costs are too high. Let's go to China or wherever where the labor is cheaper. Their jobs are fine. And they're doing it in the boardroom, so far removed from the workers. But if you actually had we had a democracy or collective say from the workers, what form it is, direct democracy or representative democracy inside businesses, they're not going to be like, yeah, let's vote to lose our own jobs to go overseas. Like, that's the best protection you can do to stop jobs being shipped abroad, to stop capital flight, and keeping the economy local, keeping wealth in the local community. It's why I'm a socialist. I'm glad we get to talk about socialism today, though, because obviously often what we talk about in these shows are like the day-to-day political stuff. So it's nice that we had a little bit of economic theory going on there. But I think that's all we have time for. Slightly overran, but I think that's been a brilliant show, a very good show for 2025, the first one back. I want to thank everyone who tuned in. Of course, I want to thank the brilliant Lewis Aaron. I want to thank those who gifted memberships. Again, it's so incredibly generous. We couldn't do it without you. Remember, if you haven't liked the stream, please do. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Again, if you come back after the live is over, drop a comment. That helps the algorithm. And if you want to see Turn Left continue to grow, then make sure you share this video online. Tell your friends and tell your friends and family about us. Then there is only a couple of us working voluntarily. So if you want us to become full-time and this is our paid jobs, then you can support us financially by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to donate. You can do monthly, or you can do a one-off donation. You can follow us on Blue Sky. Our handle is @turnleftmedia.co.uk. Also, let us know about the new time slot of 8 p.m. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? Any feedback is greatly appreciated. We are back this Thursday at the same time of 8 p.m. I'm Curtis Daly. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.